If you read Tarantino's book, you know he's obsessed with career trajectories. His plan to only make 10 perfect movies is something he's been talking about for a long time. And listen, that's his deal. I will not try to claim I know better what's best for him, but I have the right to be angry. And I will say that replicating this kind of mindset can be dangerous if you're an artist. And I will also try to explain how much we are losing when people become obsessed with perfection. I get it. 10 movies, all of them fantastic. Every fan can have a completely different ranking. There's a lot of nice connection, but also variety. You have the non-stop machine gun of crazy ideas in Pulp Fiction, but you also have the chill, laid-back Jackie Brown or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Perfection is tasty. One film that Tarantino mentions in his book is Billy Wilder's Fedora, a film that you likely never heard of. He uses it as an example of a director being past it and out of touch, which we'll get into. But here is my number one question. Billy Wilder is a legend of cinema. He won 6 Oscars. His work is truly timeless. You can show Sunset Boulevard to someone who never watches old movies, and they will be mesmerized because of how good it is written. He wrote one of the most iconic and hilarious lines in cinema history.
But you don't understand, Osgood. I'm a man. Well, nobody's perfect.
If you ignore all of his career success, he's still a fascinating person. Reading about his early life is great, and he lived to the age of 95. The changes in society he witnessed must have been mind-blowing. He saw the rise of fascism in Europe and the rise of Pokemon popularity in the same lifetime. Now, let me ask you, after knowing all of this about Billy Wilder, the 6-time Oscar winner who worked with Marilyn Monroe, was insanely funny, had an incredibly interesting life. Do you really give a shit if his last film was not that good? Second question, do you really give a shit if a director's career is perfect? In the span of 7 years, Spielberg made Jaws, Close Encounters, Raiders, and E.T. He also made the not-so-popular 1941.
Look, you guys are Japs up! The dummy's right.
This film is technically interrupting a great directing run, but the thing is that when people look back on 1941, there's not really that much to hate. I mean, sure, plenty people will say that it sucks, but no one uses it as an example of Spielberg actually not having it. If anything, 1941 is interesting. It's fun to analyze what led Spielberg to make this film, and there's a lot of people who even see it in a much more positive light years later. It is a film that's oddly cynical and kind of ugly for Spielberg, which makes it fun to talk about. Now, let's look at Tarantino's dud. And you might think to yourself, wait, all Tarantino's movies are pretty good, but he considers Death Proof to be his worst film, his 1941, which, is a sensible opinion, but I don't see why you would even say that about your own film. Once again, Death Proof is a really interesting film on Tarantino's filmography. It's awesome that after the huge story of Kill Bill, he made a small B movie. You could argue that if he followed directly with Inglourious Basterds, his career would have been cleaner. But I don't want a world where Tarantino doesn't make Death Proof to have a nicer filmography. Directors should fail sometimes, because it means they are trying different things. Sure, perfection is pretty, but there's a cost to it. You can take years crafting the perfect film idea, but you could also just try to make a short every couple of months and write like 5 features to see which one works the best. Make a Star Trek film. Why not? Make a third Kill Bill movie. Make a horror film, which you clearly wanted to make all your life. Make your Rambo adaptation. Make a gangster film. Or make a sequel to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood yourself. As you might know, Tarantino wrote The Adventures of Cliff Booth, but he was on set almost the whole time, sitting next to Fincher. It's basically his film, but because he only wants to make 10, it's not, and I find it hilarious that he gets off on a technicality when it comes to his own made-up rules. Speaking of, Tarantino almost started making his 10th film, The Film Critic. It already got a tax incentive from California, which sounds pretty serious, and he still cancelled at the last minute. His reason was that it was too similar to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, let me ask you again. Who cares? He's already pretending that 2 movies are one. Can't he just do that again? One thing about perfectionism is that you lose out on wild choices. But there's a second cost of perfectionism. As I mentioned in the beginning, Tarantino doesn't want to make a film that makes him look old and out of touch. But every day he doesn't make a film, he becomes more old and out of touch. When he talked badly about Paul Dano and other actors, people got really mad and universally defended the actors, saying that a director should not make comments like these. But my takeaway is that being an asshole out of nowhere is a sign of an old guy. It reminds me of the comment Orson Welles made of Woody Allen, which, to be fair, is hilarious. But these comments were made when he was almost 70, and aging is fine. I mean, you can't be cool and hip your whole life and mean old people are funny. But if you are taking your time with your final film and you are in your 60s and live in a bubble in Tel Aviv, there's a good chance you will make an out-of-touch film. If Spielberg only made 10 films, he would never make The Schindler's List or Jurassic Park. Ridley Scott would never make Gladiator. Scorsese would never make Goodfellas. The Coens would never make No Country for Old Men. And I won't pretend it's always great. Ethan Coen is almost finished with his trilogy of lesbian comedies, and the reviews are far from great. But I'm happy that these films exist. It is kind of funny that a guy in his 70s is making these, but it's also endearing. Who gives a shit if people find you out of touch? Just make your lesbian comedy. I think life is about trying things and sometimes failing. It's not about perfecting your Wikipedia article, which might say some bad things too already. Again, it's his choice to only make 10 movies. And if he only wants to write books, I'm sure they will be great and I will read them and probably love them. But I can't help but feel that he still wants to make films and holds himself back. A perfect filmography doesn't matter. One day we will all be skeletons and we won't care how perfect our achievements are. So please, unless you think you are Michael Jordan of making movies and think you can make absolute perfection every time, don't try to be the perfectionist. Just go out and try and fail and continue and forget about being perfect.
Out the way you want it.
Why the need for so much gruesome, graphic violence? Why not let us imagine
Because
a little
it's so
of it?
much fun, Jan. Get it?